just want to let you see how planets can interact and they can interpret them. A lot of this is the negative energy expressions of these planets and how they can cause different types of negative conditions in our life, we'll say. So when I'm talking about aspects, we're talking about aspects of a cross. If you see this Jupiter here, let me make this full screen. View, entire screen. Okay, can you all see this real well now? Mm-hmm. Okay, if you look up here, I've got Jupiter. Do you see that? Can you all see that?
Yeah.
And it's 98 degrees from Neptune, or 90 degrees rather, 90 degrees. That's a square. In other words, any aspect that makes a cross in your chart is an affliction. So if Saturn is afflicting Mars, for example, by opposition or square, here's an opposition here going across the board, and then square is 90 degrees. If half of 90 degrees is 45, it's also an affliction. Okay? So if we see planets making afflictions, for example, the moon afflicting Mercury, what's that mean if you look at that in a chart, especially if you're dealing with children? It shows immaturity of mind and speech. Remember, the moon is the child in us. And it's also very emotional. And if you look at people that have emotional outbursts with their speech, that have under emotional duress say funny things or weird things, like if you've ever gone to a casino and you see the idiots at the table yelling and screaming when they win a hand.
Yeah.
No, seriously, they're so infantile, right?
Yeah.
And that's a Mercury moon affliction. You see what I'm talking about? So it's hard because if I'm teaching a class and I say a moon square Mercury, is childlike in their thoughts and expression, it can offend somebody in the class. Obviously, you know that. So you know what I'm saying? They could be.
You're not offending anybody here. It's going to take a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
You can't even get rid of us.
Can offend you. Okay. But it's just can be immature in their speech and their behavior. And my teacher in prison, when I was in prison 9 years, you know that, was a black man named Percy Newton. And he got me into this whole thing. I was one of these young white guys that knew it all, and all of a sudden somebody's showing me things that I've been taught all my life is a pseudoscience. I'm too intellectual to believe in this stuff. And so somebody opened my eyes, and he did. But he used to tell me that this can be a sign of a fool. And what he means in this essence is it makes people act foolish. We say fool, you're a fool. Well, people act very foolish under emotional duress sometimes. And they say foolish things. Childlike almost, you see? So maybe I should look at Trump's chart again. Anyway, so what we have here, we have aspects that cause conflicts, okay? If you look over to the right of that, you see Pluto there in the middle?
You might have to point.
Okay. Oh, let me point to it. Thank you. I need a lot of help here. So we got Pluto afflicting Saturn by opposition. Okay? What do you think that could interpret as? Okay? Pluto opposition Saturn. A lot of it is anger and sexuality energies they're at war. Anytime you see Mars Saturn, there's generally there's many things that involve. Remember what Saturn is? It's called what? The accuser of our brethren. Remember that? So whenever you look at Saturn in a chart, you're looking at guilt. Okay?
Okay.
So this means that there's a lot of sexual secrets probably. Most guilt surrounds sex, quite frankly. Saturn works best to make you feel non-worthy when it comes to things of sex. Did you know that?
No.
Oh, how do you think they bring down somebody in politics? Oh, just unravel and find something they did sexually. That's the quickest way to destroy somebody's life. That's Saturn's job. So whenever you see Saturn and Mars in affliction, there's usually something involving either anger. I've seen people that have committed murder when I was in prison and never got caught with that aspect. In other words, they carry the guilt, they know they did it, and they just haven't ever been caught yet. You see what I'm getting at?
Yep.
Because that Mars can be very violent, you see. So if it's afflicting Saturn, it can produce usually has guilt around sex. It might be because somebody's married and they're having affairs, or they had an affair and they've always regretted it, you know what I'm saying? There's all that Saturn stuff is there, okay? Now, it's not a judgment thing. I'm not teaching you judgments. I'm not being judgmental. I'm teaching you something, okay? To understand it. And you look at these things with understanding and with compassion. We're not here to judge anything. We're here to look at the chart, see what are the issues the person's dealing with that's causing problems in their life. Now, the reason we worry about the problems is not because it's not the true way to get somebody to deal with something is forgiveness. That means you are forgiving and they're forgiving themselves. But what we're dealing with in these energies is the problems that they produce that you don't see on the surface is they produce physical problems. Okay? What kind of physical problems would come from that? In other words, guilt produces physical problems. So what does it produce? It produces skeletal frame problems, teeth, bones, remember? I told you that the other day? Skin. Okay, all those are problems related to guilt, non-worth. Okay? And then Mars, another energy altogether. It's also muscular problems, Mars. You see what I mean?
Yep.
Okay, so you combine the two, if you're walking around always guilty, it's not that everybody's got guilt from something. I don't think there's a pure heart in the world. Somebody hasn't done something. You had grown up, you did things, experimented, you did things. We have all got our skeleton, does that sound like Saturn? Skeletons in the closet. Right, so we all have them, okay? It's not about the fact that we've done things wrong. It's that we've learned to forgive ourselves and forgive others. It doesn't matter. It's not about judging it, okay? Who the hell can judge? Well, you know, if you had...
walk-in closet full of skeletons?
Yeah. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. But the whole point I'm trying to get over this is we're not here to judge anything. We're here to help them. And the only way you're going to help somebody is lead them to a level of God forgiveness. That was the whole message of Jesus, was what? Forgive. So I'm just trying to take you through a little path here, okay? Mercury on the left over here, you see the Mercury is afflicting Mars?
Yeah. Yep.
What does it say there? Mercury rules brothers and sisters. That means there's conflict between brothers and sisters with that person. If they have them, if they have siblings. There'll be problems, there'll be conflicts, because Mars creates conflicts and war. I hit on a note there somewhere?
She said ours must be in bold.
Okay. Okay. But look at what I wrote there. You notice see the word Thoth?
Yeah.
Thoth. That's the Egyptian name for Mercury. And that's where we got our name Thought from. That's how we use the word thought. Mercury is Thoth. Okay. So if it's Mars afflicting Mercury, what does that tell you about a person? They have a lot of mental conflict. Right?
Yeah.
I was born with that aspect. I can talk about myself. I stuttered till I was 14. I was raised in boarding homes and abused as a child for most of my early life. I had so much conflict because of my stuttering. And I used to be so flinchy. If somebody raised a hand around me, I expected to be hit as a child. So I would always cover my face and cover up. And then my stepmother would beat me for doing that.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? She would. She'd slap the shit out of me after I do that. And it was,
Parents would beat us and then be like, "You want me to give you something to cry about?" It's like, I thought you just did.
That's
what happened?
exactly. That's the kind of mindset she had, you know. So, but actually, you know what broke me of that was when I was in high school. There was a game going around that if you flinched, you got hit.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, two for flinching.
Yeah. What is it called?
2 for flinching.
Oh, yeah, okay, so they did that. They're still doing that today?
Well,
When we were young.
Oh,
Now
yeah.
you go to jail probably for that.
I was about to say, for even saying it, you probably go to jail. You don't even have to play the game.
Well, that's good things have changed in the positive way, but I would always flinch, of course, and I came home black and blue on my shoulders all day. They'd hit me in the arm, you know. But it helped break me from that because I didn't want to get hit every time I flinched. But the point I'm getting at is that I had a lot of Mercury-Mars affliction in my chart. You see it? And so I also had Mercury, Sun I had Mars afflicting my Sun. So I was an angry child, an angry spirit. And I took that out. As I got older, I became, you know, more directed in that direction. So again, go back to, what do I wrote under that? Oh, the other side of that is anger clouds the mind, okay, with Mercury, Mars. If I get very angry, I don't think right and I don't speak right. I mean, I'll say things, my wife will say, boy, your students should hear this one. You know what I mean? When I get angry, it's like, I don't give a damn if 20 people in the room, I'll speak my mind, you know? And it's usually not very pleasant. But that's a cursing speech, see, Mars? In anger, I'll say things I would never say in a polite crowd. I mean, you know, but if I'm angry, it doesn't matter. I'm going to speak, you know, whatever comes out.
It's what it is, yep.
Yeah. So when you see that in a child, let's say you're doing a chart of a child, how much more understanding can you be if you had a chart of a child and you looked at that and you said, oh, no wonder this child is this way. No wonder he gets so angry when his will is thwarted. No wonder he gets so angry in his speech and the things he says. You know, I hate you, I wish you were dead. You know, all that stuff. You see kids do that. And that's very much that kind of aspect, okay? Now let's take it up there. Mercury is, let's say it's joined with Uranus. Okay? Okay. Now, I'm just thinking.
Can you use the cursor, please?
Yeah, the cursor. Well, my wife told me to use the cursor.
Teach, okay?
Okay. Uranus is conjunct Mercury. And in this picture you see it's eccentric, rebellious, okay, shock, surprise, radical thinking, all of that's Uranus. Uranus is rebellious. It's very New Age oriented, okay? So if it's conjoined with something, it tends to produce that quality. Is that making sense?
Yep.
Okay. So, you know, people will do things that are considered antisocial very often if they have a strong Uranus affliction. Okay? Because Uranus is going to drive them to more extreme behavior, and it tends to drive them to be, sometimes they're just very eccentric, and it's not necessarily a negative thing, but there's a little rebelliousness in that. So let's go on over here to Mars and afflicting Saturn. You see that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So remember, Mars is anger, and Saturn holds on to past hurts. So people that have that aspect can be unforgiving. It can be an aspect of unforgiveness. So, you know, a lot of it has to do with the family, the way they're brought up. If you're taught that you don't forgive things, you hold on to them, you keep reliving them. That is the potential danger of that aspect. Okay, Saturn and Mars. And so, you know, unless they have, remember one thing, no one aspect in a chart makes the whole chart. Okay? You see what I'm saying? So, for example, can I talk about Amy?
Sure.
Amy has Mars Saturn conjunction. Okay? That can be a lot of this energy, you see. But you also have Venus conjunct with the Moon. You got Jupiter conjunct the Moon. These are counterbalances to that energy. Okay? So here's this great, powerful constellium of planets that are all talking about what a beautiful soul she is and what a wise soul she has. Then over on the other side over here, there's this Mars-Saturn thing, which is saying there's a lot of issues, generally, okay, we're going to be general, but there can be a lot of issues around men, particularly, okay, that produces problems, okay, that can be anger, it can be holding things in. Saturn and having a lot of regrets and all that stuff. All that's tied up with those two aspects. So we got a duality of energies there expressed in one chart. You can't read one chart and say, oh, there's Mars, Saturn, this, and that's the whole story. It's not. But it has a propensity to act out at some point in their life. They usually have to deal with issues regarding those planets. It doesn't mean that they're overwhelming or they're controlling. It means that they have probably had to interact on that level in periods of their life and learn how to deal with it. Okay? Do you remember I told you anytime you see Mars-Saturn aspects, conjunctions, squares, or oppositions where there's a lot of stress aspects between them, 45 degrees, remember that's also a stress aspect. Whenever you see stress aspects between those planets, that person needs to be counseled to do something. Do you remember what I told you the counseling should be?
No.
Maybe I didn't tell you that.
No, I don't think
Okay, they need to exercise.
so. Okay.
Why do you think they need to exercise?
What, for stress? Because,
Because why?
To strengthen their muscles and their.
That's good. That's good. What rules muscles?
The muscles. that
Mars.
Mars. Good. You guys are getting it. What rules? What does Saturn rule?
The
Skin,
bones.
bones.
Good. Good. So if they're afflicted, generally people that have that aspect have strong bodies. Because listen, I got to share something. We got to get one side of this straight, and that is that square aspects make strength. Even though they're conflicted, they're afflicted. But the reason they make strength is the stress that's produced by those energies forces one to get strong. Or you break under them. It's one of the two. It'll break you. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
You break it, you break it.
It'll break or make you.
Yep.
So people that have that aspect generally, first of all, they need to understand the energies, because if they don't exercise and expend the energy that Mars represents and that discipline that Saturn represents, Saturn's discipline, did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, of course, Saturn is the taskmaster. So you work hard, you deserve this, you earned it, right? Where Jesus says you didn't have to work hard, I'll give it to you anyway. You see the two? So Mars and Saturn afflictions make you want to exercise because you've got that stress going on. If you don't stress and get rid of the stress, what becomes instead? You get angry and you get depressed. Okay, because Saturn's depression and Mars is anger. So if you you don't work out regularly. I tell people that have this aspect all the time, and most of them listen to me. My wife will teach me that. She says, I've got to work out. You know, she is that way. She's always been that way. She's very physical and she's extraordinarily strong. She whipped my ass, I know that. So anyway, so that aspect is not negative. It's only that it's not used right. We don't know what to do with it. So you sit home and you get anxious, you get angry quick, you get depressed. You don't know why, because you didn't do anything with that energy. Making sense?
Yep.
Okay. So both Amy and my wife have Saturn energies, like you don't need that expression.
Mars, Saturn, yeah.
You both have that, okay? You have so many similarities between your charts. You do. Venus, Moon, hers, Venus, Jupiter right there together. You have Venus, Jupiter together.
Yep.
Similarities, many. But anyway, and what were you both doing today? What were you both doing?
Gardening.
Working in the garden. Yeah.
Sweating.
I know, but that's funny, and it's like you have that need to be out, and you do it. You express that positively.
Because if I don't,
Yeah, look out, right?
look out. Yeah.
Same for me and her. if I don't get her off her leash and get her outside, she's go run my dog a little bit. Anyway, so okay, so let's go back to this Mars Saturn and Pluto Saturn. This is the worst aspect in the chart. It's Saturn, Pluto, and Mars. And
Where's your Saturn? And what
so
sign?
remember
What
that.
sign?
Remember I told you Saturn afflictions are skeletons in the closet. It's scapegoating, finding others to blame. People that do that a lot, or they're blaming themselves all the time.
Mars
You
is
know,
Leo.
they're not blaming others.
In the fifth house.
And so,
My eldest son.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Okay.
I will fight for my men.
Uh,
Blindness.
what did I write here?
Saturn is
Not worthy, guilt, shame.
Yeah.
It's an Aquarius.
Yeah, that's all Saturn talking. You see that?
Yep.
You know,
I
so
think it's almost
we got somebody there sitting next to you that has to get rid of this stuff.
Is it
You
in
see
the,
that?
the
You
10th
know?
or the 9th?
Just, you don't need it. It just draws you down, drags you down.
180 degrees
Okay, so,
from the
what did I write up here? Not worth, I don't know what I wrote.
10th house.
Ron Watson, Aquarius.
Oh, my wife wrote that. So- Oh, here, let's look at Neptune and affliction with Mars.
So, yeah.
Neptune is, rules dreams, visions, it's hallucination. It rules the dream state, unconscious, self-undoing, sorrow, sadness, grief. Neptune is the martyr. Neptune in affliction in a chart is always, why me? You know, and spend years wallowing in self-pity. That's Neptunian stuff. Very often a Piscean thing. You see it with Pisces a lot. Oh, who did I just talk about?
My brother-in-law.
Oh my god.
Yeah?
A lot of my exes.
Did I hit on something there? So, notice what it says, Mars, or Neptune rather, and Mars afflictions, okay?
Neptune and Mars?
Yeah, so in that case we've got fear, worry, and hypochondria sometimes. You know,
Virgo?
yeah, that's all in this aspect often. What did I write there? Something sleep.
Yeah, something sleep, I can't remember. Alcohol.
Oh yeah, alcohol. People that tend to have that aspect are very often turned to alcohol or drugs because they help them escape reality. See that? So,
Oh, that's me!
oh, are you an alky?
I'm trying not to be. But I have a semi-square, so.
Well, you have a lot of afflictions with Saturn, Mars, and Pluto.
Yep.
And Neptune's semi-square to all that.
Yep.
Yeah, don't give her anything to drink.
I'm scaling it back.
Did you ever drink?
Do you want me to?
Yeah. No, I'm fine, thank you.
Wait a minute, I'm getting a confession here. Did you ever drink?
Of course.
A lot?
Of course.
You did really?
Absolutely.
Wow, I wouldn't have guessed.
But I'm trying to scale it back at this moment in my life.
Oh, I really had on a note here. Little discovery.
Pretty accurate.
Sitting here with
Ask my
us.
husband.
Huh?
You can ask my husband.
Yeah, really? Really?
That I like to drink a lot.
I didn't know that. She's making her chart real, isn't she? Okay. So she has an affliction between Mars and Saturn. I mean Neptune, rather. Anyway, so has this been fun? You see these energies?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at down here. I see the sun is afflicting moon. You see it?
Yep.
Okay, tell me again, what does the affliction mean?
Stress, tension.
Together,
No, affliction means an aspect between the planets or the energies.
like 90 degrees,
Good.
45 degrees.
Part of the cross, you got it. They're crucified, right?
Yep.
Okay, so look at the sun and moon. What does that say? Will. The will is fighting what? The habits and addictions.
Yeah. Use your pointer.
Okay, use the. It was there. Sun afflicting moon. The will can afflict the habits, which is the moon. They're an affliction. So that's like fighting the person that's going on a diet all the time. Never can do it because their habits are so ingrained, and their emotional needs force them to keep going to the refrigerator to get something sweet or neat to eat. So consequently, they don't really diet. They want to. Their will says, I want to do it. But if the will and the emotions or the will and the habits are in conflict, the habits usually win. But that's why the diet industry is so big today, why it's such a multi-billion-dollar business. Because they know that as soon as they get off the diet, they're going to go back to their old habits again. And they're going to either have to come back and buy more of their diets, or they're going to stay fat the rest of their life. See what I'm coming from? The will and the moon is the emotions, the habits. Anybody has afflictions in the moon, generally, very often, will have problems with controlling their weight. Not always, but generally. Again, remember I told you there's a positive side of all these aspects, and I said it makes for strength. So all of these energies can be turned around if, in this case, if the will is strong enough, it can overwhelm and overcome the affliction to the moon. But it takes a determined strength, you know? So,
So
okay.
even though my son is afflicted by Mars and Saturn, I've almost been given the disease, but at the cure too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Both sides of it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's not all the negative side. We tend to, the problem with teaching is it's easy to demonize these aspects. I tend to spend a lot of time on the negative side of it because, quite frankly, you're going to be dealing with clients that come to you for help. And you need to be able to see the potential areas where they're having their weaknesses. Okay? So, it's not like it's all doom and gloom. It's just that we want to understand, because all of these have a third meaning, and I didn't even touch on those, and that is physical, the physical body. The emotional side of it, the mental side of it's all expressed in these aspects. A lot of it I'm dealing with is the emotional mental. But if you translate these energies into physical form, they take on sometimes very hard diseases or energies that can cause harm to the body. Because as above, so below, as within, so without. Okay, so when I see an aspect where Mars is afflicting the moon, for example, I'm more concerned not just with their emotional anger towards their mother, for example. The moon is the mother. Yeah, you know, and when I see that, I also worry about ulcers. Or Mars afflicting the moon can be breast problems like breast cancer, things like that. You see? Okay? So or Saturn affliction of the moon can do the same thing. Generally, Mars creates more of a inflammatory thing. Saturn produces, for example, growths of tumors, such things as that. Saturn hardens and crystallizes things. Mars inflames things, infects things. High fevers, for example, things like that. Okay? So, you know, sometimes when I'm doing a chart, the chart will speak to me. Like, I'd be doing a chart and I'd say, oh, your Mars is conjunct your moon. You must have nearly died, I bet, when you were a child of a high fever. Because the moon is the early childhood years. And the person will say, you know, that's true, I actually almost did die. My mother told me we didn't expect you to survive. But you begin to carry this. For example, in that chart, it was in the 4th house. Rules the early childhood as well. I had another client one time. It was my ex-wife's boyfriend before me, and I did his chart, and he had Mars conjunct the moon, and I think it was in Aries, and I said, you know, there must have been something when at childbirth that caused a great amount of suffering, and something about Mars at cutting. And you know what he said to me? He said, I was born by cesarean, and when the doctor cut my mother open to take me out, he slashed my face with his knife. So he's got the scar today, even to prove it. But he was born with that wound, and Mars had wounded him at birth of his life, you know, birth chart. But there's so many things that sometimes you say, well, you know, why do you see this particular thing or that? As you do this and develop this skill, you'll become very prophetic, and you'll become much more able to see specific things. In the chart, the planets, the stars will talk to you, literally. And people say to me sometimes, how did you see that? And I can't always tell them, you know? Like there was a client came to me last week or a couple weeks ago, and she was, her friend had brought her, because she had a reading from me before. And she was very excited about the reading. So when she came, before she came, she gave me a birth time, and she said, I'm not sure if it's AM or PM. Well, that's a 12 hours difference. In a chart, it makes a lot of difference.
Sure.
So I asked her friend, I said, when I did the 2 charts, I said, I want to know if she's got 2 or 3 children, because I see that in her chart of this one chart. But I want to ask the question, does she have 2 or 3? And she texted me back, she has 2. You're right, she has 2. Then before she came, I remember kept saying, I thought I saw, I'm not sure, I thought I saw possibly 3. When she sat down for the reading, I said, you've got 2 kids, and you have a hard time balancing your work. She was a lawyer, by the way. You have a hard time balancing your work with your children and taking care of your children because your husband's no longer with you. She said, that's true. I said, but I have a question. I said, can I ask you a personal question without offending you? And I said, and you don't have to answer it, but I said, did you have a 3rd child you lost? Because remember, I kept seeing 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 kept coming up in my reading. Kept saying, where's this 3rd child? And she says, she said to her friend that brought her, who was with her when she was getting a reading, she says, well, you don't even know that. She says, I did have an abortion.
Oh.
So the point I'm getting at is that when sometimes you see things in a chart and you don't quite clearly grasp the full meaning of it,
Sure.
but it's often concealed by their life's behavior. And so anyway, enough of all that. So, I hope this is meaningful. I just want you to recognize also when you're looking at the moon in a chart, always realizing that it's absorbing everything. The moon is receptive. It's pure like the soul. It just doesn't take anything in, but it just, with any kind of analysis, it just absorbs it. And it's pure receptivity. So
is that feminine?
yeah, exactly. Very much so. And it's pure receptivity. Therefore, if Mars is afflicting the moon or aspecting it in a positive way, it doesn't matter. That the moon is sucking all that energy in. It's not able to counteract it with any of its own energy because it's pure receptivity. So that's why it represents the innocent little child that's born, the new birth that's born. They're totally subject to everything around them and any influence. There's nothing they can do about it. They can be victims very easy. So very often Mars aspects or Saturn aspects to the moon can be very difficult. Also, when I see, I see in a chart, I can see people that they have habits that are not good, destructive. Mercury, for example, rules the lungs. And very often when I see afflictions to Mercury, particularly with the moon, which rules the habit forms in your life, I'll tell somebody, I did that on a radio show that's on my V card that I sent you guys. I was doing a radio show and I said, yeah, you've got a problem with addiction. She said, oh, no. I said, you smoke. I said, you smoke. And then she confessed she did. And I said, you've had a hard time with that because you can't quit. And but that was Mercury and the moon afflictions. And it's very obvious in a chart. And people say, a lot of times people deny it. They'll deny something, but if you just keep on probing, you'll find out what it is. Really, their addictions are.
Actually, they'll give in and tell you.
Exactly, yeah.
Drinks and then they'll loosen up.
You got it. Well, a lot of people also don't have memory for things. And then I've had people come back to me later saying, now Ron, I remembered what you were telling me, now I see it. But it didn't occur to them when they're getting the reading.
Right, needs to process. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of joking up here a little bit, but I want you to I'm just kind of giving you an overview of how you're going to read charts. So the first thing for you guys before I see you next time is what? Learn the symbols. So you're looking at these symbols, you'll know them instantly what they are. You can practice with each other too,
Yep.
Test each other, kind of do. and it'll make you learn it fast, okay? And each week, we're gonna go a further step. I don't wanna start on the charts yet because, you know, you're all gonna get, you're kind of a personal time with your own charts. But I want you to know enough before we do that so that we jump into something you just kind of strange different language to you.
Sure.
Okay, so, and so let's plan. I'm glad you're flexible, and I am too. We had no problem changing the date to this today.
Thank you.
But you know, any week you have a challenge, feel free. Don't feel embarrassed to change it. It's okay with me. I'm very flexible.